All right, welcome back to the channel, all of you pure metal fans out there. Today I'm going to do a by request top five submitted by Stephen Casey Solis. Thanks for the request, Stephen. Today I'm going to do my top five Bloodgood albums of all time. So without any further ado, let's get going. So at my number five spot is A Rock in the Hard Place. This one for me, number five, only because it's their third album. It's the last album with David Zafiro on it, and it's kind of a departure from the sound that they had on Detonation. So for me, that departure for me was kind of not the direction I was hoping they would go in. So it's not quite as heavy. It's a little more hard rock than metal, and it has some good songs on it. It has some good tracks. This one kind of this album had to grow on me, honestly. It was, like I said, a little bit of a letdown for me after Detonation being so good. And some of the tracks on here did grow on me over time. You've got Shakin' It, that's pretty catchy. Never Be the Same. Seven, that's become one of their classic tracks. As if you know anything about Bloodgood, then you understand what I'm talking about. But yeah, and because of the fact that it is a change in sound from the heavy Detonation sound, that's kind of what puts it in the fifth spot for me. So you could disagree with me, that's fine, and ultimately it doesn't matter what I think, it's what you think. So in the comments below, let me know what you think, and after we're done with the video, go ahead and put your top five in. If you agree with me, that's great. If not, I'd like to see and hear what your top five is, and also what you might disagree with me on or agree with me on, for that matter. So fifth spot for me, Rock in a Hard Place. Coming in at number four for me is All Stand Together. This was their last album before they basically, I think, went on hiatus or broke up or whatever you want, the early 90s. 1991, actually. I like this sound, the sound of this album overall. I think it's got a great sound. SOS is a killer track. All Stand Together. Kingdom Come. I actually haven't listened to this album in quite a long time. I think I need to pull it out and give it a good listen again. But not much else to say about it. I have to, like I said, re-listen to it again soon. But I remember enough to know that I like it better than I liked Rock in a Hard Place. So this one would be the last album that they did before they broke up, and were broken up for quite a long time, for a couple of decades at least. Or as far as, well, I shouldn't say that. They hadn't put out a studio album for a couple decades after this. So in my fourth spot, All Stand Together. And coming in at a solid third place for me, and I think I only bought the cassette of this, so I don't have a CD. I do, however, have the classic archives from, what is it? Whatever record company that is, KMG or MGK Records. I can't even read it. They put out these. If you're into Christian music and Christian rock and all that, you will have seen these classic archives 2-for-1 CDs. Unfortunately, when they did these, they often would cut out a couple songs on an album or two just to make it fit. But this one is my number three spot is Out of the Darkness. I think that was, being the fourth album that came out, and it was the first without David Zafiro. I really felt like they kind of got back to they got their mojo back and their vibe back, and they were back to rocking a little heavier. And the opening track for this is really a killer one as well. Um, so Out of the Darkness, I can't say too much about it. It's got one of my favorite songs, which is Top of the Mountain. It's a great ballad type song, and then the opener, Out of the Darkness, is great. Um, or Shaking It is the first. I'm sorry, no, right, that's not it. Yeah, Out of the Darkness is the number one track, I believe. Yes, opening track, Out of the Darkness, title track. Let My People Go, good one. Top of the Mountain, like I said, Top of the Mountain, great song. One of my probably my top 5 Bloodgood songs. Um, Changing Me, really good tracks, really solid tracks on Out of the Darkness. So I wish I had. I think I need to go buy the CD then, and maybe try to find it on vinyl. I don't know if they put it on vinyl. Let me know in the comments. Number 3 spot is Out of the Darkness. In my number 2 slot, I have the self-titled debut, Bloodgood. And there's only one reason that it's in the number 2 spot for me, and that's because of my number 1 album. Just to me is the best, by far, Bloodgood album of all time. It also happens to be the heaviest one. So you know what's coming. If you know anything about Bloodgood, you probably know what's coming up next. But the debut, this was another one of those albums that came out when I was a very young Christian. It came out, it was saved late 1985, and this came out in 1986. So I got this about the same time, around that same time, Rock for the King by Barren Cross came out. This self-titled Bloodgood came out. The Petra's Back to the Street came out. And then the Striper had just come out with Soldiers Under Command. And those were some very impactful albums on me as a very young new Christian for less than a year, and really kind of helped shape my Christian music experience and Christian hard rock and metal experience. So, at my number 2 spot, not much to be said about it. Everybody knows this. I will say my favorite tracks on this are probably Demon on the Run, Anguish and Pain, Black Snake, Killing the Beast, and Accept the Lamb, the opener. That's really good too. And the interesting thing about Bloodgood too is that, along with a lot of the Christian metal bands that came out in the mid to late 80s, a lot of them had a tendency to sound like, often almost exactly like, a mainstream band. You often get comparisons. For example, I won't go into it too much in Rabbit Trail, but for example, you have a lot of comparisons that you can draw between Barren Cross and Iron Maiden. And of course, you've got, and I haven't done any tops for that one because they haven't put out very many albums. So I don't even know if I can do a top 5. Do they even have 5 studio albums? I don't know. I don't think they do. Maybe I'll do a top 3 for Barren Cross. Anyway, and then you have White Cross that drew almost exact comparisons, at least with the first album, with Rat. And the list goes on and on. I know there's a few other bands that are like, wow, they sound almost exactly like this band. But and that's both good and bad, I think. But my point being, with Bloodgood, to me, I still hardly can think of any band that you can really draw a comparison to. But Bloodgood had a very, very unique sound, and I found that to be very interesting too early on. And it was refreshing because I had gotten the Barren Cross, and then later, a couple of years later, I will have purchased the White Cross, which just sounds like Rat, like I said. And it was refreshing to have a Christian metal band that was very good, very talented, that didn't sound like a secular band, a mainstream band. And so, originality points, they get a 10 out of 10. The production value was pretty good too. They didn't have like some of the bands had, especially their first or couple of albums. A lot of the bands had really, really big, poor quality production, and that can't blame them for that if they didn't have the money, for example. But anyway, Bloodgood always had pretty decent production, and so it was refreshing to get that first Bloodgood album. I bought it on cassette, I think, because I didn't have a record player, so I think at the time CDs were just kind of coming out strong. Anyway, so that's my solid number 2, Bloodgood self-titled. Really great classic album. And now to my number 1, by a long shot, number 1 spot for my top 5 Bloodgood albums of all time, Detonation. And if you want to try to convince me otherwise, as what album is the best Bloodgood album, you're gonna be hard pressed to convince me that this is not the best album. Sophomore album, arguably the heaviest album, and just absolutely killer album. And it probably has their 2 most famous songs on here, or 2 most popular songs. And it starts off with Battle of the Flesh, which I think is just a killer opener. And Vagrant People, Self-Destruction, Alone and Suicide. Heartbeat of the City, that's a great one. Eat the Flesh, Holy Fire, and then you've got Crucify and The Messiah, which are probably the 2 most well-known and most popular Bloodgood songs of all time. So, and then Livewire is a great closer. So, number 1 spot, the best Bloodgood album of all time. Come at me. Give me your top 5 in the comments below. Place your comments in the comments below. What do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you vehemently disagree with me? You can say what you want in the comments. Please keep it civil and keep it family oriented. This is a PG. This is actually G-rated channel. We're not going to have any. It's going to be family friendly. But Detonation. I just can't say enough about this. Maybe I can try to. Thoughts in my head is to try to get an interview in with Les Carlson and ask him about the early days and what he thought about all this stuff. But this is it. This is the number 1. This is the best Bloodgood album of all time. It is Detonation. Boom. That being said, there's my top 5 Bloodgood albums of all time. And until next time, stay metal and love and aloha.